She called him just a janitor, until the single dad solved a problem no one could. The morning Marcus dropped his daughter off at school, she asked him why he wore the same gray uniform every day. He knelt down, zipped her jacket up to her chin, and told her that every job that helps people is worth being proud of. She nodded like she understood, hugged him around the neck, and ran through the school gates. Marcus watched until she disappeared, then drove to Nexus Financial, the glass tower downtown where he pushed a mop, emptied bins, and became invisible to nearly everyone inside. He had been invisible for 3 years. If you believe every person deserves dignity, no matter what uniform they wear, hit that like button right now, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. We tell stories that remind the world what really matters. Marcus hadn't always worn gray. 7 years ago, he was 2 semesters away from finishing his engineering degree when his wife, Diane, was diagnosed. The treatments were expensive. The bills came faster than love can prepare you for. He left school, took every shift he could find, and held her hand through all of it. When she passed, she left behind a 4-year-old girl named Lily and a man who had quietly buried his own dreams somewhere underneath the grief. He never went back to finish his degree. There was no time, and truthfully, there was no energy left in him for wanting things for himself anymore. Everything he had, every single drop, went to Lily. So he cleaned offices. He sanitized floors that executives walked across without looking down. He wiped fingerprints off glass doors that slammed in his face without apology. And he did it without complaint, because at the end of every shift, he went home, made dinner, helped with homework, and read stories until a small girl with her mother's eyes fell asleep. That was enough. That had to be enough. The trouble began on a Tuesday in March, when the entire trading floor of Nexus Financial went dark. It wasn't a power outage. The screens were on, the lights were on, but the proprietary trading algorithm that the company had spent $4 million developing, the system that processed thousands of financial transactions per second, had entered what the lead developers called a catastrophic recursive loop. No one could stop it. No one could even slow it down. Every attempted fix made the bleeding worse. The firm was hemorrhaging money by the minute, and the clock was ticking toward a threshold that, if crossed, would trigger regulatory alerts and potentially bring the entire operation under federal investigation. The tech team had been at it for 6 hours. 3 outside consultants had been flown in and were huddled around laptops with the desperate, hollow look of people who had run out of answers. The executive floor had descended to the trading room, all sharp suits and sharper panic. And in the middle of all of it, a woman named Victoria Haynes, the director of operations, was moving through the room like a storm. She was brilliant, driven, and on this particular morning, she was terrified, and terror in powerful people often comes out as cruelty. That was when Marcus came in to collect the trash. He moved quietly along the edges of the room the way he always did, learned invisibility, practiced smallness. But as he passed the central workstation, he paused. He couldn't help it. The code cascading across the monitor, he recognized the structure. Not all of it. But enough. The recursive loop they were trapped in, the specific pattern of the error, it was something he had studied in his 2nd year of engineering, a systems fault in feedback architecture that his professor had called a ghost loop, because it looked like it was resolving while it was actually compounding. He stood there for just a moment too long. Victoria saw him standing near the workstation and crossed the room in 3 strides. She didn't ask what he was looking at. She pointed toward the door and told him, in front of 40 people, that he was just a janitor and that he needed to leave and let the professionals work. Her voice carried. Heads turned. Someone snickered. Marcus felt the words land the way those words always land, not loud, but deep, in the place where a person keeps whatever is left of their self-worth. He picked up his bin and walked toward the door. He almost kept walking. But at the doorway, he stopped. He thought about Lily asking him why he wore the same uniform every day. He thought about what he had told her. He thought about Diane, who used to say that the moment you walk away from the truth to protect your comfort, you lose something you can't get back. He set the bin down and turned around. He walked back to the workstation. His hands were steady even though his heart was hammering. He asked one of the junior developers, quietly, if he could look at the base layer of the algorithm's feedback sequence. The developer, exhausted and out of options, slid the laptop toward him without a word. Marcus sat down. The room went oddly still. His fingers moved across the keyboard slowly at first, then with a precision that comes not from recent practice but from deep memory, the kind of knowledge that lives in your hands. He wasn't showing off. He wasn't performing. He was simply solving a problem, the same way he approached everything in his life, quietly, methodically, without expecting applause. Within 22 minutes, he had isolated the loop, written a patch, and stabilized the system. The cascading error stopped. The screens normalized. The numbers held. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then one of the outside consultants said, in a low voice, that the patch was elegant. More than elegant. That it addressed not just the immediate fault but a deeper structural vulnerability that none of them had caught. He asked Marcus where he had learned systems architecture at that level. Marcus told him about his unfinished degree, about Diane, about the years between then and now. He didn't say it with bitterness. He said it the way people describe weather: this happened, then this happened, then this is where I am. Victoria Haynes stood at the edge of the group. She had the look of someone being shown something about themselves that they didn't want to see and couldn't look away from. She didn't apologize loudly. But later, after the room had quieted and the consultants had packed up and the executives had retreated back upstairs, she found Marcus in the corridor. She told him that what she had said earlier was wrong. That she was sorry. That it mattered that she said it. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, not with anger, but with the quiet dignity of a man who had spent years being underestimated and had decided, somewhere along the way, that other people's blindness was not his burden to carry. Within a month, Nexus Financial offered to sponsor the completion of his engineering degree. Within a year, Marcus was consulting part-time for the firm's systems team. But the thing he remembers most from that day is not the standing ovation from the developers, or the offer letter, or even the look on Victoria's face. What he remembers is going home that evening and telling Lily what had happened. She listened with wide eyes, and then she asked if the people at his work finally knew how smart he was. He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long time. He told her that the people who mattered always knew. She climbed into his lap, satisfied, and asked him to read her story. He read to her until she fell asleep, her breathing soft and steady against his chest, and the gray uniform hanging on the back of the door looked, somehow, different than it had that morning. If this story moved something in you, if Marcus reminded you of someone you know, or someone you are, drop a single word in the comments that describes how this made you feel. Just one word. Let's see how many hearts this story reaches. Some people carry entire universes inside them, and the world never thinks to look because of the clothes they wear. The kindest thing you can do, the most powerful thing, is to look anyway. To see the person before the uniform, the story before the title, the human being before the role. Marcus never needed anyone to believe in him to know his own worth. But on the day someone finally looked, the world got a little better for it. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that dignity belongs to everyone, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, where every story is a reminder that ordinary people do extraordinary things every single day.